Welcome to Currency Cast. How do global companies tackle the tsunami of digitization, new payment methods, and regulations? Welcome to Currency Cast. My name is Agustin McKinley. I'm the Senior Financial Writer at Cantox and your host. In this episode, we have the pleasure to welcome Guillermo De La Fuente, Senior Finance Executive and member of the Swiss Association of Corporate Treasurers. Guillermo, a warm welcome to you and thank you for joining us today in this episode of Currency Cast.
Thank you very much, Agustin. Thank you very much, Cantox. It's a real pleasure for me to be back to my roots in Spain, and very proud to be in a company which is a success history. You've been celebrating last week 200 employees. That's right. A big milestone, and congratulations.
Thank you very much. Guillermo, can you start by introducing yourself to our audience?
Yes, I studied at the University of Oviedo. I made business and finance. Then I made an MBA in the University of Houston. I started working for multinational companies in Spain before moving to Switzerland, working for CERN, the European Laboratory for Physics, where I've been 9 years working in finance. So my experience is more than 30 years, 35 years in Treasury, in finance, accounts payable, payments, and working in different sectors, like working for JP Morgan as a bank, or working for trading companies, working for telecommunications and high-tech companies.
Now, in a previous conversation, Guillermo told us that there is a tsunami of digitization, new payment methods, and regulations going on. So that brings the question, Guillermo, how are corporate treasurers expected to navigate those always shifting waters?
Yeah, that's a very good point. And now we are in a critical phase where a lot of things are happening in the payment ecosystem. A lot of changes, not only in regulation, but also in technology, digitization as well. And how can treasurers evolve on that environment is part of the ADN that we have, the treasurers. We always have to adapt. We've been adapting to the new technologies from 20 years ago already, when internet started being used in Treasury, and since then we didn't stop to evolve, to change and to adapt to the ecosystem. So now payments is in a big change. We have new regulations coming on. The PSD3 regulation in Europe is just there. The instant payments has been approved. It's going to be part of our lives, probably the new normal very soon. The ISO 20022 also is going to change completely the way we work in terms of standardization, which was one of the first demands that we as Treasury start 20 or 30 years ago already. And all these things are happening now at the same time. So it's kind of a tsunami, as you say, and we have to adapt to it. The associations that I'm part of, not only the Swiss Treasury Association, but also the European Treasury Association, is working very actively on
That's right.
On making sure that the ship arrives to the port in the right time without any casualties. So we are working on trying to shape the regulation and making sure that the changes that we are facing that will bring a lot of benefits for Treasury.
Perfect. And I'm going to have another question on the role of corporate treasury associations. Now, you named the concept of an ecosystem. I really like that term because it really captures what's going on, I think, in the digital economy, in the world as a whole, right? There are those ecosystems where people are both competing and and collaborating with each other. So again, name, if you will, some of these innovations. I know you're very active in terms of payments fraud and digital identity.
Yes. These two topics are my specialty, and I'm very focused on, and it will take us a lot of time to talk about it. But okay, I will try to be as brief as possible, and trying to make sure that we get right to the point. The point is, in terms of fraud, we are seeing a lot of fraud coming from the new payment methods. In the past, there were people trying to make false checks, forging checks. That was the kind of fraud that we were facing, or the banks were facing, when the payments were made physically in paper or by checks. Now everything changed with the new technologies, and these fraudsters are very, very clever. Well, first of all, they are not just a fraudster; they are gangs. They are business that they are acting in the fraud area. So we are facing what we call sometimes the third world war, because these people are working very actively using the latest technology. So in that sense, we need to get at the same level that they are. And how can we fight against fraud? It's a very complex question, and that's the reason I mentioned the ecosystem, because it's not just the mission of a treasurer; it's the mission of the bank as well, the mission of the politicians, the regulators, the law enforcement, and also the private and the public sector.
So there are lots of stakeholders involved, right?
A lot of the stakeholders. It's the only way we can fight against them. I mean, I'm not sure if we're going to win or not, but if we want to fight against them, we have to have the same weapons and the same tools that they are using. And the only way to be effective in the fight against payment fraud is working together and working all the stakeholders very jointly.
Right, and you just mentioned, of course, the role of the corporate treasurers associations.
Yes.
We know that our friend François Masquelier is pretty active, and he's been writing recently about that. And
I want to point something that we are very proud of, and is the one solution that we as corporate treasury at the association we manage, or we being able to convince the regulators to include in the latest instant payment regulation, and now it's going to be also in the new payment regulation as well, which is the confirmation or the check of the IBAN and the name of the beneficiary. Right. This is very important, and this is something where most of the fraud that we are facing treasurer is happening. So we are very proud that thanks to the very active work from the association, we managed to influence the legislator and the regulator, and now this measure for fighting payment fraud is already included in the regulation, and it's going to be implemented by banks and PSPs in 2025. So we are very proud that all the work that has been done has finally get a reward and be finally been implemented in the laws. Talking about digital identity as well, I told you these are very big themes to speak, and I want to be very briefly on that. I believe that corporates, very simple, needs an identity, like persons. In most of the countries, the individual have an
ID, right? Yes.
A passport. I think the corporates, we need the same. Now in this world where you don't know who are facing in the other line, because you are not facing physically your customer, your supplier, your shareholder. Now you you are acting digitally. So you don't know who is in the other line. You don't know if you are really talking to your real client, or you are talking to your real supplier, or somebody else. So you need really something
That's right.
which needs to make sure and ensure that the counterparty you are facing is the right one. And this is where we think the digital identity, in particular, the European Association is working with the GLAIF, which is the association that the organization created by the Financial Stability Board, which handles the LEI numbers and VLEI and all this kind of digital identity.
So it's fair to say that you take a positive view of the role of corporate treasury associations, right? And are you concerned, as François Masculier is, about perhaps the lack of participation on the part of young treasurers who don't like to physically gather in one space?
Well, this something remains to be seen. Maybe it's a temporary effect, we don't know yet, but it's true, again, as I say at the beginning, we have to adapt. We have to adapt ourselves. Things are changing so fast. The new generations, they have different expectations that we have. Francois, myself, we being in Treasury for many years, the young people has a different way to interact, also professionally. So I think the associations also have to adapt to the new environment. And I don't know exactly if there is a lack of interest. Maybe there are other ways to participate. People, the new generations, they believe more in virtual meetings. It's a completely different situation. Right. And my personal opinion, I think, is what I can share with you is, we've been living during COVID times in our houses, in our apartments, without being in contact with others. And I don't think that was a very positive experience.
Absolutely.
Being again together, meeting people face to face, shaking hands, hugging people, I think this is what makes the human beings different. So it's a pity if we create a virtual world for everything.
Right, I agree. Now, Guillermo, let's go back a little bit to the issue of payments fraud. I see, correct me if I'm wrong, but a really interesting duality of sorts going on. On the one hand, we have high-profile cases of deep fakes, of fraud, payments fraud. One that comes to mind involved the CFO of a Hong Kong-based company forced to pay $25 million on a deep fake story. But on the other hand, and that is really interesting, right? The CFOs are bullish or optimistic on the role also of artificial intelligence to combat combat fraud. So, to cite one participant, there is an unending mathematical arms race between, on the one hand, the fraudster, and on the other hand, companies and the authorities. What is your view?
Yeah, that's another very good point, and that's the difference between the fraudster, the criminals, and the people that are in one side of the law and the people that are in the other side of the law. The people that are in the back side of the law, they can do whatever they want. They don't have rules. They can kill people. They can traffic with human beings. They can do everything, or they try to do everything. But on the other hand, the people that are in the right side of the law, they have to comply with many regulations. So you cannot go and hijack the criminal that is stolen your money. You have to go to the police. You have to make a report. The police, if it's in one country, has to communicate to the police in other countries. So we don't have the same tools Let's put it that way. They have the advantage that they can do whatever they want, and they can do it faster. They can use the artificial intelligence. They're using a lot of technologies, and they can do all these things very quickly without complying any rule. We, the people that are in the right side of the law, we have a lot of constraints, and that's something that is worldwide recognized, and this is something that unfortunately we cannot change. So that's the reason they always have an advantage in front of us. The artificial intelligence, is a very well. It's a case that it brings a lot of. It's in the news. A lot of people talking about, but don't need to be so sophisticated. We still have the CFO fraud, which is really silly, but it works. It works very well. So tricking the human people is still very easy. You don't need to use the latest technology, with very sophisticated technologies to trick people. There are still a lot of cases which can be easily reduced. As I say before, just checking the IBAN and the name of the beneficiary will stop all the CFO fraud and will stop all the supplier impersonation fraud. So these are things I think we need to focus on where the largest proportion of fraud is going on, and this is what we are doing in the European Treasury Association and also in the different groups that are fighting against financial crime that I'm being part of as member of the association. And this is, I think, what we really need to focus now in the short term, making step by step, using, of course, the rules and regulations that we have to comply with.
Right, that's a really good point. Now, Guillermo, let's tackle the issue of currency management. You work in Geneva, a city close to my heart, as I lived nearby during 10 years. But of course, Switzerland is such an interesting place from the point of view of currency management. Companies have to tackle with the issue of the strong Swiss franc. We've seen issues with some of the watchmakers. Recently, the company Swatch, according to Bloomberg, had to suffer a 550 million Swiss franc drag on revenue on account of the strong Swiss franc. So broadly, how do companies cope with that?
Yeah, if I knew that, I won't be here. But it's a very complex question, and especially in Switzerland, it's even much difficult to tackle, because, as you know, putting a FX hedging program in place can, at the end, you are buying time. So you can buy time, you can cover 1 or 2 years or 3 years. I don't know many corporate treasurers that are going further than 3 years, but you can cover or making sure that you protect your margin for, let's say, 1, 2 or 3 years max. Then you need to go back to reality and face, and that's the problem in Switzerland. We have been a stronger Swiss franc for many years. I remember in 2000, between 2000, 2005, 2007, 170 was the standard, the normal price for 1 euro Swiss franc. Now we are even lower than 1. So you see, it's 70% decrease. So it's a huge impact, and now it has been for a long time. So some companies can face that, putting in place a robust FX hedging program, but after 3 or 4 years, you need to adapt your prices to the reality. So you need to increase prices, and then you erode your margins, or you decrease your sales. The problem is that because most of the Swiss companies don't sell in Swiss francs, so they cannot naturally hedge.
That's right.
the big multinational, as you mentioned, in the watching industry, the pharmaceutical, they have the facilities in Switzerland. They have a lot of employees in Switzerland. Most of the multinationals that are part of our association, they have the headquarters in Switzerland for the whole world or for Europe, and they are facing the cost in Swiss francs. But the revenues are not in Swiss franc, are in other currencies. So they cannot naturally hedge that. And as I say, they can put a FX hedging program in place, but that will be only a very short period of time to cover. So that's the reason, and unfortunately, I have to say, many corporates in Switzerland are moving out.
Right.
Are moving out of Switzerland. My company is doing that as well. So you see, in terms of treasury, we see a lot of movements on that sense, because
absolutely. No.
Some companies have big margins and they can afford that, but the companies that have margins more tight than the luxury or the pharmaceutical, they are facing a big problem.
Right. Now, there's another aspect to the strong Swiss franc, and it has to do with interest rates, right? They're very low. They're about 1.25% now for short-term interest rates in Swiss franc. That means that on the one hand, there's going to be a problem because, of course, the Swiss franc trades at a deep forward premium against other currencies, especially emerging market currencies, and that means that there is a high cost of hedging. But on the other hand, this could be relatively good news in the sense that, as I said, it means a low cost of capital. Recently, we discussed the case
Sure.
of On Holdings, the sports shoe maker, taking advantage of the low cost of capital to produce really meaningful innovation. So there are two aspects as well, right, to the strong Swiss franc.
Correct. That's completely true. And coming back to my point before, the problem is most of the corporates in Switzerland, multinational, they selling in other currencies. Right. So, okay, you can borrow in franc Swiss cheaper, but at the end you have to finance something else outside Switzerland, and then you need to make or convert those Swiss francs in another currency.
The currency mismatch would always be there.
And you will pay the price. We've been doing that. Maybe you can find some windows, opportunities where you can make the financing cheaper, but at the end, using forwards and changing currencies to cover the financing in Swiss francs is not a big advantage. Of course, for companies like the Swiss trains, the CFF, which is the national carrier of trains in Switzerland, for them it's very good because they get in Swiss francs because they're selling in Switzerland and they finance and they trains in the global market in Swiss francs. So for them it's a very good opportunity. But for the people that are exposed to a currency for the cost and a currency for the revenues is much more complex than that. And as I said before at the beginning, it's very difficult to find a perfect solution. You can, of course, putting in place robust FX hedging programs which help you to fight against those mismatches, but you need to have a solid team, a good partner in the financing area, in the bank or in the FX sales as well, that help you to manage all that. And this is the main problem that we are facing in Switzerland, of course.
Right. Now, Switzerland is also interesting from the currency management point of view, from the from the perspective of the governance of foreign exchange risk management. We know that, for example, Nestle is a pioneer in Treasury centralization, which is a subject, again, that is dear to us. We recently created launched the in-house FX solution. It's an automated solution for the management of currencies between headquarters and subsidiaries. So what is your view on, broadly speaking, on Treasury centralization and the governance of currency management?
Yes, another very good question. And again, managing currencies is becoming more and more complex, and that's the reason you need sophisticated systems, you need latest technology, you need the support of experts on the area, and that's the reason we got into centralization, because it's difficult to have the expertise all around the world in a different place. So it's better to concentrate in a single place where you can have all the staff, all the well-trained, all the experienced people together, and also get access to the right tools and the right financial support as well.
Right.
Also, the reason we are talking about centralization is very obvious. It's the technology that we have today. As I say, 20 years ago, you didn't have the possibility to see your bank accounts in real time. If you have that, you have to have, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 different tokens to connect to your banks. And the technology today allows you to centralize, which obviously makes sense and makes you to gain economy of scale, and also, as I said before, share the experience of the people, and also the experience of the financial support that you need in every FX transaction.
That's correct.
So today, again, thanks to the digital economy, thanks to the technology, it's normal to have everything centralized, something that was not possible some time ago. For the young generation, maybe seems a little bit idiot saying that, but 20 or 15 years ago, we didn't have smartphones, and we didn't have e-banking solutions. So they don't know those kind of things. They know, for instance, the euro is a single euro, a single currency. I was working with all the currencies in Europe at the same time. So imagine.
Yes, the complexity at
the complexity, yes. And also the amount of time that you need to spend in. And now you see with that, just we are not talking about technology now. We are just talking about a political solution. A political solution like the euro make everything easier for the people dealing in FX in Europe, and also makes things easier for us centralization and streamlining the operations in
That's right.
FX.
All right. Now, Guillermo De La Fuente, Senior Finance Executive and member of the board of the Corporate Association of Swiss Treasurers. Thank you very much for joining us in this episode of CurrencyCast. We covered a lot of ground. We started out with the tsunami of digitization, the payment methods, and regulations. We went on to discuss, broadly speaking, fraud in the payment space, and the role of generative artificial intelligence on the one hand as making it easy for fraudsters to thrive, and on the other hand, allowing participants that are on the right side of the law, as Guillermo said, to counter those initiatives. And we discussed also the currency management angle from the perspective of a treasurer that has long experience in Switzerland. Guillermo, is there something that you would like to add?
No, I think we've been very ambitious in this interview. We're trying to talk about many different topics. It's not easy. It's not easy to make things or explain things so complex in a very short of period of time. But I think it's important to make some points on this, and I think we from the Corporate Treasury Association we keep doing that, and this is part of our activity, and that's the reason I'm very optimistic in the future of the association of treasurers.
Perfect. So Guillermo De La Fuente, thanks a lot again, and see you next time.
Thank you.